Hello LinkedIn, Richard here on his Churchill Fellowship. I'm in Ottawa, Canada, and this is part 2 of the video that I made recently. So it's the second program that I'm interested in, but it's also going to be an overview of Canada. So I leave for the UK tomorrow. I'll be going to London and Scotland, or England and Scotland, sorry. And I'll do something similar at the end of that trip, an overview. So the second program I'm interested in, I found very interesting here, was to do with child protection. Now, it doesn't necessarily use lived experience, but it also does. So mentors can have lived experience or cannot. Now, what happens is a notification's made. It might be by, and it's similar to in Australia, it might be made by police, it might be made by education or a teacher, social worker or something, that there's potential child at risk or at risk of harm in a household. Child safety goes out, and they go and investigate. Now, there's a few things, like similar to Australia, there's a few things that they can do. They can either say, oh no, this is just not needed, we're not needed, there's no intervention needed, or they can go into an agreement, which is sort of a low-level thing, and then it goes away up to a very serious thing where they take the child in their care immediately. Now, a similar thing in Australia, but what happens is when child safety does this assessment, and if it's not immediate risk of harm, it's one of the low-level ones, they contact this youth organisation and they say, look, this family is at risk of interacting with the child protection system. Can you go in and help with these few little things? This organisation goes in, and it may be things like food. They need food or housing or something like that, and they help them with that. But it also might be behavioural problems of the children. And where they've seen success is where there's been a single parent household and a young male child who's growing, and what they do is they send in a mentor. So it may not just be a mentor, like they may help them with food, accommodation, or anything, but they may also send in a mentor to spend time with the kid as well and help them with their behavioural problems. And where they've seen success, like it's not a panacea, but where they've seen success is where single mum, young boy playing up, needs male role model, mentor goes in, helps settle the kids, the organisation helps with food, accommodation and stuff like that, and helps stabilise that family. Now, I thought that was great. That's a really interesting way to stop people from interacting with that system. I don't know whether we have that in Australia. I imagine we would. If you're part of child safety or anything like that, and or know of a program like that, then I'd love to hear about it. Australia's a big place. There's a lot happening. Like, I don't know every program that's going on, but yeah, tag someone in the comments or an organisation that does that sort of thing. I'd love to chat to them. Now, an overview of Canada. So, what I've learned is a lot of these programs, organisations that I visited, started with a niche thing. So one program started with just driving parents and kids up to the prisons to visit their families. Now, from that, it's grown, and many of the other organisations have done the same thing. Like, they started with one niche thing, and it's grown and grown and grown. Now, they do programs where they educate kids on social skills, they do youth diversion programs or youth justice programs, employment programs, all sorts. But it all started with one thing. Now, often, one of the things that they grow into is food. So the organisation gets known, people start donating things, sometimes more than they can handle, and sometimes that's food. So, and I also saw something interesting in one of the Indigenous Canadian community centres. It's fantastic. It was a freeze dryer. So what they do is fresh fruit and veg comes in, they don't cook it. If they can't cook it, they freeze dry it, and then they preserve it, and it lasts for a very long time. And I thought that was interesting because I've got a side hustle that I'm always looking at ways to turn it into a social enterprise, and we're looking at buying a freeze dryer. So I'll keep them thinking about that. but also when I'm planning my own program, thinking about the future, like what could it potentially grow into, and is food something you need to consider? Because food scarcity and food insecurity is growing along with housing shortage and all that sort of stuff. So I thought that was interesting, and it gave me food for thought when planning and growing my own sort of lived experience program. Another thing, lived experience in Canada is not like it's known to build rapport. Everyone agrees on that, but it's not like, it doesn't have a name, or it doesn't have like a profile. And the reason why I say this is because America does. Now, my fellowship was supposed to be going around the USA only. I was going to spend 8 weeks going around looking at what they call credible messenger programs in America that uses this lived experience. Unfortunately, for visa problems, I couldn't go. So I'm going to be doing that online. So I know a little bit about what goes on there from a surface level, but I don't know everything. But next week, I start doing online interviews with people from America. Now, just comparing Canada to what I know of America, America it has like a name for what this lived experience is. It has organizations, it has academics, it has researchers very interested in it. If you say the word credible messenger in America, a lot of people know what it is. They know the type of lived experience, and they know programs about it. And a lot of organizations call themselves credible messenger programs. In Canada, that's not the same. It's not what I would say as developed. It doesn't have training organizations. It doesn't have the name, but the interest is there. People have seen, or people with lived experience are generally drawn to these type of organizations, and the people who run these organizations, they've seen the power of the rapport that can be built. So there's certainly interest, and it's been a very interesting experience hearing all the different programs. But I think that when I start my meetings with USA next week, that'll be very interesting. That'll create sort of something for me to compare it to in some context. Well, that's it for Canada. Thank you for your time. Heading to London tomorrow, and we'll see what organisations we get over there.